It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Chad Erickson, on a Tuesday. How many days until the Super Bowl? What's it, 12? Sam, is it 12? 12 days? A lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Plenty of football. The Jimmy Butler situation has gone all the way to the end now. I mean, it's pretty much game over as far as the Heat and Butler and those two sides are concerned. We'll talk about that. Jason Cole will drop by, who's done an amazing job on the NFL for, a quarter of a century? He's written books about it. He's a Hall of Fame selector. He will join us, talk some NFL with him for a couple of segments. Cowboys got a new head coach, introduced him. We'll talk about that some, also the Super Bowl, and get into an early preview there. And I got to talk about fans, sports fans, and in particular NFL fans. And some of you might not like what I have to say, but I'm going to say it. We'll do that coming up a little later on. Odds and ends, all of that good stuff too, as Sammy Arnell is here with me as well today on the show. And Sam, the banner at the top of the screen reads, Weekend Leftovers. Who has the brighter future? I was thinking about this in bed this morning as I was contemplating what we were going to talk about on today's show. And I was sitting there going, the two teams that have been eliminated from this postseason over on Sunday, the Bills and the Commanders. And, obviously so much promise with what the Commanders accomplished this season. Who the hell, thought this was going to happen, maybe outside of Sam. And the Buffalo Bills, who have, been perennial powerhouses in the AFC, but haven't been able to figure out a way to get across that finish line against the Kansas City Chiefs. So I asked the question, Sam, who has the brighter future as the seasons come to an end for the Commanders and the Bills? And I'm going to tell you the answer, and it's not as cut and dry as you would think it is. I actually think it's the Commanders. And the reason why is the conference they play in. I look at, I look at the gauntlet that Josh Allen and the Bills are going to have to run every year for the near and distant future, because all these guys came into the league together. All these guys came into the league at the same time. So Josh Allen's going to be competing with his contemporaries like Joe Burrow, competing with his contemporaries like Lamar Jackson, competing with his contemporaries like, obviously, Patrick Mahomes. Not like they're showing any signs of slowing down. And then I look over at the NFC and I see what's going on with the Commanders, and the NFC is going to be a crapshoot every year, when you sort of look at the way that conference breaks down. So when I actually think about it, it's not an indictment on one roster or the other. It's just the situation. Some people are born on first base. Some people are born on third base. Some are just better situations than others. I'd rather be up and coming in the NFC than I would the AFC, given the competition there. I want to know what you think about that, and I'm sure we're going to have some very interesting thoughts. But first, a word from our friends over at Edge Boost. I love Edge Boost. If you haven't gone and signed up for this thing yet, go and do it. It is an Edge Boost Visa debit card. It's all about sports bettors. It's the card specifically made for sports bettors. I'm telling you about it now. The financial platform that pays you cash back to wager. Edge Boost is an online bank account, pays you for every deposit. With the Edge Boost Visa debit card, you're getting up to 0.5% cash back on all your sportsbook, daily fantasy site, and casino transactions. Who else is doing that for you? That's free money back in your pocket just for doing what you're already doing. It's a no-brainer. Plus, your Edge Boost debit card starts with a $250,000 daily limit, and it'll never be declined for gambling activity. They've got built-in tools to help you stay responsible, and there's absolutely no hidden fees or minimum required balances. So stop leaving money on the table. What are you doing? Visit edgeboost.bet to learn more and sign up today. Better yet, just click the QR code. You see it right there? Just click that QR code. Scan the QR code. Yeah, I know. Edgeboost.bet here on Sports Wrap. Sam, who's got the brighter future?
So much like you've been thinking about this question nonstop, since we had the discussion with Bill yesterday, have not been able to stop thinking about how much better the AFC is than the NFC. And oh my goodness, then I started looking at the numbers. The AFC has won 4 of the last 6 Super Bowls. The only 2 NFC Super Bowl wins that came in that time were because those NFC teams were quite literally playing in their home stadium. They had a built-in home game for the Super Bowl, and they got lucky and won a couple of times. Listen, the AFC is going to dominate the NFL for years to come. And for that reason, Jason is exactly correct. The Washington Commanders, when you're talking about depth in the playoffs, do have a brighter future. Now, there are levels to this question, right? When we're talking about Super Bowls, there's absolutely no chance the Commanders have a brighter future than the Buffalo Bills, because all it will take is the Buffalo Bills to get past the Kansas City Chiefs one time. Meanwhile, the Commanders will have to get through the entire NFC and then whoever's good out of the AFC. I think it's been well established, and quite frankly, I think one of the biggest takeaways from this Bills Chiefs game en masse has been, oh my gosh, the AFC is just so much better than the NFC right now. And quite frankly, based on where the top 4 quarterbacks are, I don't think anyone sees that changing for years to come. So you're exactly right, Jason. The Commanders do have a brighter future than the Bills because the conference they play in is a cakewalk compared to that of the Buffalo Bills.
Are we giving short shrift to Philadelphia? Have we been unfair in taking a dump verbally on the Philadelphia Eagles when you consider they're going to the second Super Bowl in the last 3 years? You know, Nick Sirianni's been much maligned. Everybody talks about what Jalen Hurts can't do. Here they are, though, back in the Super Bowl again. So I'm just left to wonder if, when we talk about the NFC conversation, you know, up until this year, San Francisco was thought as a perennial powerhouse. Obviously, the injuries took a toll on that team. Maybe we're being a tad bit unfair, just a tad bit unfair.
I think that I understand the perspective. I think that
I'm just throwing it out
narrative behind that just severely underestimates the ease with which the Philadelphia Eagles had in terms of path to a Super Bowl both times.
But the flip side of that is maybe it's just because they're a lot better than we think they are. That's the flip side to it, right? I mean, I'm just saying that there's 2 sides to every coin. We'll come back. We got to do some NBA. Sam's favorite sport. Jimmy Butler's in the news again. Coming up in 10 minutes, Jason Cole, Hall of Fame selector for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Also an author, has written several books about the NFL, including one of the definitive John Elway biographies. Get some thoughts with him on a few topics around the league, also what he makes of this Super Bowl matchup we will see coming up in a couple of weeks. But some big news out of the NBA, Sam Yarnell. The Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler. Officially, I think the divorce is done. Jimmy Butler's been suspended indefinitely by the Miami Heat after he walked out of practice or shoot-around. On Monday, he walked out of shoot-around after being told, yeah, you're not starting anymore. We're sending you to the bench. Brian Windhorst has done a terrific job with ESPN in sort of chronicling what's going on with this story. And he says now the Heat have basically said, we'll take anything we can get for Jimmy Butler to get out of this situation. And that's sort of where we are now, that this thing has become so acrimonious that the team is looking for an out here. According again to Brian Windhorst, Bradley Beal is being viewed as the most untradeable contract in the NBA, which is making the Suns trying to get Butler difficult. And now there's teams that were out of the mix for Jimmy Butler that think it might be possible to get back in because they may not have to give up that much. The problem is still the contracts here. The problem is still trying to make it all work from a financial standpoint in the salary cap. And that's the crux of the problem here when you look at sort of what the Heat are trying to do and what other teams are trying to do in acquire Jimmy Butler. There is one thing, though, in all of this that I think that I think is important to remember. And I know this is going to sound simplistic, Sam, but in these situations, the teams have all the leverage. They own your rights. They own you. I mean, I hate to say it this way because it almost sounds like, it almost sounds like I shudder. I hesitate to use a certain word, but they own Jimmy Butler's rights. He has no control. All you can do is posture and make it difficult for them. But still, at the end of the day, if they want to let him rot for the rest of this season, they can let him rot for the rest of this season. Yes, is it going to hurt them as well? Sure. But Pat Riley has shown his ego right now is very much top of mind when it comes to dealing with this situation. I don't know how they get rid of him because there's only going to be a couple of teams that they can make it work with. It's a mess right now in Miami.
It is. You're right that the franchise does hold the power, but Jason, I think that you may be underestimating just a hair the power of the NBA and the power of the players in the NBA to recognize a situation and a player being treated poorly and kind of hurt them in other ways, right? They will lose out on free agents if this continues to go on the way that it does. All that said, listen, a couple of main takeaways from me, known NBA fan on the program, number one.
Sure.
That's right. Ball knower extraordinaire, if you will. So first of all, Jimmy Butler definitely did the same thing he did in Minnesota in Miami yesterday, and I can't wait to hear about it on a podcast in 3 years. It's going to be awesome. The story is probably really, really good. That's takeaway number one. Takeaway number two, shout out to Tommy Shepard. Washington Wizards just sitting here in the corner. Tommy Shepard on his way out the door, giving Bradley Beal that contract with like the first full no trade clause in like NBA history. It was awesome because look at the damage it is doing to the entire league now. It's like Tommy Shepard just like threw up the keys and watched the whole thing go up in flames behind him in one of those movie cuts. Truly awesome stuff from the former Wizards GM. Those are my main takeaways. The Wizards truly rule the NBA, and if you have any other takeaway, I don't know what to tell you.
I do have some more takeaways on this, and we'll talk about those coming up in just a moment after a word from our friends at Credit Associates. Well, you know what's blocking the Miami Heat from trading Jimmy Butler right now? The amount of money he makes and how difficult it is to put him on another team. Is your credit card debt blocking you right now? Are you $10,000 or more in credit card debt? In over your head trying to make monthly payments? Well, there's a powerful debt relief program the credit card companies don't want you to know about. It's still half-February with our friends at Credit Associates. Overcome the debt trap of multiple credit cards, high payments, and high interest rates that keep you in debt for decades with one affordable low monthly payment. Credit Associates Debt Relief Program can help you resolve your debt in as little as 24 to 36 months, saving you thousands of dollars and decades in debt. Find out how much you can save. Call 1-800-747-5362. That's 1-800-747-5362. Better yet, just scan the QR code below, Sam Yarnow.
That's right, Jason
I typically would agree with you about players having power. I think a guy like Pat Riley is the exception to the rule, though. And I'll also say this. Miami's always going to be an attractive destination because it's Miami. Miami's always going to be attractive destination because there's no state income tax and your money goes a lot further. A $25 million deal in Miami is a lot more than a $25 million deal in California or New York or Toronto or just about anywhere else in the country.
It's also a lot more fun to live in Miami than it is to live in Indianapolis between the months of September and May.
Yeah. Yes, it is. So I think while we'd like to think that players are looking around the league and watching what teams are doing, look, the Knicks forever and a day couldn't get a free agent to come and sign with them. So there is something to be said for a culture and an organization and how players are treated by organizations and ownership and management and all of that playing a factor in it. But in the case of this Jimmy Butler thing, right now they are so locked in terms of what they can do. Like, they can't get anything done with Phoenix. Is Houston going to make a deal? I mean, here's the thing. Houston in the last week has beaten Cleveland and Boston. That's eye-opening stuff. And the Houston Rockets are no joke right now.
I still can't get over the fact the guy wants to be traded to a winner, and he's on a team that currently holds the 8th seed.
Well, I think it's also about the contract situation. That's the way it looks from where I'm sitting, is that this is as much about the contract, and we've talked to Kurt Heelan about it. He'll be on the show tomorrow. We'll revisit this then. Segment 3 on this Tuesday edition of Sports Wrap. Let's get back to the NFL conversation and bring in our friend Jason Cole, Hall of Fame selector, author, longtime NFL writer. You can go and look up his many books. What is is the Elway one your favorite, by the way?
Yeah, that's the one that I put the most sort of passion, heart, soul into. I wrote another one. Obviously, Shut Up Your Kids, not that great, is a fun one, and just goofy. But the title, is clear enough that, right there, people get that one. They laugh the most about it. I think I get the most reaction out of that.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, because it gets right to the heart of the issue. Like, there's no screwing around with what the message is, right? And people love the message. But I also wrote this book at one point about a soccer player who had a heart transplant and came back and played. His name is Simon Keith. He actually lives in Las Vegas, and has been alive for 30 years now. After a heart transplant, he's had to have a second heart transplant because your body eventually rejects it. But he's an amazing story, and the only professional athlete to play after having a heart transplant. I mean, I know there's a golfer out there, but in terms of a seriously rigorous sport, sure, like soccer, the only one to ever do it worldwide. And there's just a lot of great angles to that story.
I've asked you this before, and I didn't even mean for this topic to veer off this way, but I always find it interesting to talk to people that write, because I've done some writing, columns and things like that, but writing a book is something I'm in the middle of doing for the first time in my life. And I can't imagine just how taxing it has to be to sort of go through the process of figuring out a topic, researching all of that. Like, I'm doing something that's more autobiographical, so it's kind of easy because it's me.
Always our favorite subjects.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you have somebody? Are you working on anything else that you could tell us about that's kind of in the works?
No, well, I've got 2 books that I'm working on right now that I can't talk about because they're for hire books. Okay. Right. So, it's people call me up and say, I want to write a book. Can you be my either ghostwriter, or can you be, can you kind of write it with you?
Got it.
Like by Sam Jones with Jason Cole.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And you end up, the with is actually the writer.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I mean, most people, it's a daunting task to write 80,000 words or 60,000 words or whatever you put in a book, or 100,000 words. So yeah, it's tough. The research process is really hard. Getting all the ideas down on paper and then organizing it. Because I'm just not very good at making stuff up.
Sure.
I'm not. I'm one of those people who, give me the facts and I can explore the nuances of the facts.
Yeah.
But I'm not a fiction writer. I'm not my brain doesn't go that way. Like you know, God bless Stephen King, right? To have that kind of mind that you can come up with those kinds of details.
That
right?
sounds like a gift and a curse in that case.
Well, it probably is. But I'm more of a, when I say to people, I like, give me details,
right?
And they're like, well, what? I mean, no, I go every minute little detail. Like, where were you standing?
Right.
What were you looking at? What were you wearing? And like all those kinds of things that you want to know to describe the scene. And people often just don't think about this stuff, and I do, and then assess what does that mean and how do you get to that moment. And Elway was a lot like that for me.
Let me ask you something. We were just talking about it at the top of the show, and I'll ask you about the Bills and the Chiefs rather, and the Eagles meeting up in the Super Bowl in the next segment. But we asked a question at the top of the show today about which team has the brighter future right now. And if I said, is it Washington or Buffalo? The initial thought would be, well, it's got to be Buffalo, right? But given the conference they play in, and we were just talking about this, I think it's actually Washington that actually has the brighter future, because the path to the Super Bowl every year for them is a lot easier than the gauntlet that Josh Allen and the Bills are going to have to run. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. It could change. I don't know that it's going to change as much as the chasm of difference between the number of great quarterbacks in the AFC versus the number in the AFC. Like, that's not going to flip in 2 years because there's just not that many quarterbacks coming in yet. Depending on 2 years down the line, where's Arch Manning, that kind of thing. Where are some of the others? Just Shedeur Sanders, is he great? Is Cam Ward a great player? There'll be some questions there where those guys end up. But both conferences are obviously looking for great players. It's easier for Washington to get through to run the gauntlet. I mean, that's a very mediocre defense, to be just kind. Okay, it was a mediocre defense that got to a championship game. Why? Because all you had to do was beat Jared Goff, really. Right? You got through Baker Mayfield. Okay, that's something of a challenge. You then had to get through Jared Goff, who's not a world beater. He's a good player, but not a world beater. And all of a sudden, you're in the NFC Championship game. So Washington has the brighter future. Josh Allen's a better quarterback than Jay Daniels. And I say this from a physical standpoint, like, which one are you betting on is going to be playing at that level in 5 years? And even though Josh Allen's older and has been playing already a long time, he's just a bigger man, right? Like, Jaden Daniels, you look at and you go, man, that dude's skinny, and I don't know where the weight's going to go. And he better be really careful. Now, he's a savant at being able to understand where all the players are going. Like, he's playing a chess game unlike very few players in the league. But he's a skinny man. And skinny little dudes, this is a heavyweight boxer sport. He ain't a heavyweight boxer. That's just how it works, man. And so I hope that he has a nice long career. I cheer for him. He's a great player. But if I'm betting on who's going to be a better player in 5 years, I'm still betting on Josh Allen. It's kind of
interesting. It looked like Daniels actually got a lot smarter as the season went along in terms of protecting himself, because first half of the year he was taking hits that they were like, oh God. There was a lot of concern. It seemed like he got a lot smarter in that regard. Jason Cole is our guest. We're going to hold on to him for one more segment. I want to ask him about this Super Bowl matchup and a whole bunch more. Sports Wrap continues. Coming up in 10 minutes, something to consider. Fan behavior for your consideration. We'll get to that. Jason Cole's hanging out with us. Hall of Fame selector, author. Shut Up, Your Kid Is Not That Great is his latest release. He's also written a John Elway biography as well. Hangs out with us on the show today. Have you ever climbed up a greasy light pole before, Jason Cole?
You can see my build. I'm not climbing up anything anytime soon, whether it's greased or not.
I was just watching the highlights of Eagle fan. And it made me think of that. So I want to get your thoughts on this Super Bowl matchup, which a lot of people think could be one of the most unlikable Super Bowls because apparently the nation has turned on Kansas City. And you know what? That's just because they're great. I mean, we see it so many times again, and certainly the officiating might play some role in it too with this perception, real or not, that they're the benefit.
Oh, they're fixing games. They're fixing games left and right. That the NFL wants to take chances on fixing games so that it ultimately will ruin its fan base. Like that's what Roger Goodell is all about is fixing games for one team out of 32 so that he can destroy his sport. I mean, it's just it's comical. I mean, does it happen? Yes, there have been a series of calls that have gone Kansas City's way that are highly questionable. I'll admit that. But there's a series of calls, of random calls, and thousands upon, hundreds of thousands of calls that happen over the course of the season. That's just how I look at it. And there's no reason for the league to want Kansas City to win any more than any other team because it doesn't affect ratings. The only thing that would affect ratings is if you actually proved that games were being fixed.
But that being said, there is a crisis of crappy officiating in the league. And you know what? Maybe it's not even a crisis because for it to be a crisis, you'd have to have fans leaving the game in droves and not watching it and not paying for Netflix and not paying for Peacock and all these different subscriptions and Amazon to watch games, which fans are still willing to do. And I said it yesterday on the show. If the league keeps feeding you a bleep burger, I don't want to have to bleep it out, so I won't say it. If the league keeps feeding you this and you eat it and then you complain, but you come back and eat it some more, that's on you, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'll try and transition back to the actual game in a second because I know that's where you really want to go.
Yes.
Look, I don't know what's better. Like, I don't know what system that's going to be better that is actually becomes a watchable product. Like you can full-time refs. It's still they're playing one game a week. I mean, just because you make somebody a full-time ref doesn't mean they become a better ref, right? Like it's still a human activity and it's tough, right? And again, I always submit to people who say, "Oh, look, how could they possibly miss this?" Stand at field level and watch the movement sometime in an NFL game. If you ever have the ability to do that, or just even a practice, and see how fast this is. Yes, there are missed calls. There are constantly missed calls. In fact, players commit penalties on a regular basis because they know they're not going to get caught all the time. They're doing it because they're pushing the boundaries of what is legal because they're trying to protect their players, execute plays, and money is on the line. So yes, there are constant penalties. But what are we going to do to review on every single play? Oh, that's going to be a fascinating game. Oh my God, let's take 6 hours to play a game because we're going to review. I mean, come on, the stuff becomes unwatchable. It becomes so boring and so awful, and it changes the nature of the activity so much. You just got to live with what it is and understand you're going to have bad officiating. Hopefully that doesn't happen in the Super Bowl because I like this matchup, and I think that we have a chance to either see something truly great and see a team, like Philadelphia possibly get some revenge for a game 2 years ago and see a coach who was under massive fire a year ago at this time and was about to lose his job, basically, and why everybody wanted to run him out of town. He's basically done a double bird, so to speak, at the entire world and said, hey, how you like me now, right? That's Nick Sirianni. Great season for Nick Sirianni. Made it work, brought in Fangio, brought in Kellen Moore. Or we're going to see history and see maybe the greatest accomplishment in team sports, regardless of the sport, to win 3 straight Super Bowls in this era, to do something that just is so hard in football generally. It hasn't been done since the Packers of the 60s when it was a 12-team league. So, I think this is going to be a great Super Bowl, but yes, I understand the weariness with what was perceived as the teams that were going to be there the whole time. Everybody pretty much had picked the Chiefs or the Eagles at the beginning of the season or some close derivation of that, and there's no surprise that they're here.
I only have a minute here. Is there a shot that, from a historical standpoint, Is there a shot Andy Reid catches Don Shula if he decides to keep coaching?
I don't think there's any doubt he's going to catch him. He's going to coach for 3 or 4 more years. He signed a new contract extension either before this year or the year before.
I mean, he's basically I think he's like 55 wins behind. I think he could get there.
The total wins, he's only Shula's at 347, and right now Reed's at 301. So
we're counting we're counting playoffs, I guess.
Yeah, if you count playoffs.
Okay.
Yeah. Playoffs. Yeah. I mean, it's I think that playoff games harder to win than
I don't disagree. I just didn't know. I was looking at Football Reference.
If you're just counting total wins,
yeah,
he gets there. Now, if you're just talking about regular season wins, it might be a little bit rougher. I think you are talking about closer to 51 or 52, and it gets a little bit harder. But yeah, no, I think he catches Shula. Definitely.
Appreciate it. Jason Cole. Check out his latest book, Shut Up Your Kid Is Not That Good. Always appreciate it, my friend. Odds and Ends wraps it up in 10 minutes. Tomorrow's golf league was on Monday night. Did you watch? It was Tiger versus Rory. I was bowling, so of course, they didn't do it on a Tuesday night when Tiger plays Rory, and I don't get to watch. So I missed it. You see how broken up about it I am. All right, Sam Yarnell, something to consider on this Tuesday edition of the show. Some people aren't going to like what I have to say here, and I don't really care because there's two things I rarely do, and this will come as a shock to people who watch a show that's nationally syndicated on over 200 stations and half of Canada. There are people that are going to be shocked by what it is I'm about to say. I don't go to a lot of live sports. Did tons of it when I was younger. I've been to Super Bowls. I've been to World Series. I've gone to all the games. I've been to the carnival. I've been on the rides. I've been to the amusement park. I've been on the rides. And the longer I did it, the more frustrated I became with how challenging the experience of being a fan or a spectator at an event can be. Because you're dealing with crowds, and the older you get, you just get cranky. You don't want to be, penned in with a bunch of people. There's just certain things I just don't need it. The TV experience has become so good. I don't need to go to a lot of live sporting events. The same could be said even when it comes to watching sporting events on TV. I rarely am the guy that goes to the bar with friends to watch a game. Out here, you can go to a zillion different casinos and watch games on giant screens, and it could be a fun experience, I'm sure, for some. It is not for me. That said, this Sunday, I went and watched. I said, I'm going to go watch the Chiefs. A friend of mine who also works in the industry invited me out. I said, I'm going to go watch the Chiefs and the Bills. And I'm not going to say the name of the casino. I don't want to call out any certain casino or brand. Because it's just it doesn't add anything to the conversation. Because I'm sure it's a similar atmosphere everywhere in these sports bar, casino scenes, sports books that have the games on. The blatant level of misogyny, the blatant level of homophobia, the ignorance coming out of people's mouths, it made it so unenjoyable watching the game at the sports book that at halftime I actually left. I'm not like pearl clutching the children. I don't need, I have no problem throwing down cuss words with the best of them. Okay. I can have a mouth like a trucker when I need to. In fact, my significant other yells at me about it quite often. But the degree with which I watched fans, first from the Eagles game, because I was there and the Eagles Commanders game was ending, and watching those fans. And then watching the Bills and Chiefs fans come in and the way they behave, the way they speak about women, the way they were even in some cases talking to women was so upsetting to me that at halftime I actually got up and went home. Now I live 5 minutes from the casino in question. So it was easy for me to just pack up my stuff and go home. But it made me start to wonder, are NFL fans in general the worst of the worst when it comes to the way they behave when they're in groups? You are younger, Sam, and you probably immerse yourself in these environments more than I do. I know you've gone to games more than I have, especially the NFL. Do you find, is what I'm saying, does it track correctly with you? Or did I just see the worst of the worst on Sunday, and I just happened to get caught up in seeing the worst of the worst, and it's really not as bad as I'm making it out to be?
So it's interesting, right? Because there was a part of me that was thinking that I was thinking, like this in the past calendar year up to right now, I've been to in different cities, each of the 4 major sports, I believe. Actually, I take that back. Haven't been to an NBA game, been to a college basketball game at the Garden. But I actually feel like in the post-COVID era, there is a new edginess towards fans. I wouldn't go as far as to say that, everywhere you go, everyone's, you're always hearing the sort of vulgarities that it seems like you heard, which, jaw-dropping, that kind of stuff is being thrown around, because of sports. Like, what are we doing here, people? But that said, I've been to some tough environments, right? I went to Philly as an away fan for a hockey game not 6 months ago. And it was a tension-packed environment, but I definitely didn't. I was with my girlfriend, and I definitely didn't experience any sort of misogyny or anything like that, or that I noticed towards her. So, really tough that's going on. I don't know what else to say. Like, that's super just not acceptable, especially people when we're talking about like sports. None of this should ever be that serious at the end of the day.
It's not even, to me, it's just the lack of maturity.
Yeah.
I've gone and watched baseball games live, and I hear some things that trouble me. It's certainly not to the degree of what I was hearing on Sunday. I've been to NBA games. To me, the NFL has the worst behaved fans when you put them all in a group together. That was just what I saw on Sunday. It was very disheartening. And again, I'm not Mr. Pearl clutching or any of that. It was what I saw, and I thought it was important to mention it. Odds and Ends wraps up the show next. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Tuesday. A reminder, on Wednesday, we've got Kurt Heelan dropping by. We'll see where we are with the Jimmy Butler story. Pro basketball talk at NBCSports.com is his jam. Sam is off on Wednesdays, and that means our man Vladimir Lewisant hangs out for the hour. So that'll be fun. Without any further delay, Sam Yarnell, all of that coming up on Wednesday. But right now, it's time for a Tuesday edition of Odds and Ends. Odds and Ends presented by our friends over at Edge Boost. I'm all about trying to find ways to take sports betting to the next level. If we're talking about odds and ends, we're talking about our friends at Edge Boost. I am pumped to tell you about these guys. They have the financial platform built for sports bettors. It pays you cash back to wager. What's better than that? Edge Boost is an online bank account, and it pays you for every deposit. With the Edge Boost Visa debit card, you're getting up to 0.5% cash back on all your sportsbook, daily fantasy site, and casino transactions. Free money back in your pocket just for doing what you're already doing. It is a no-brainer. Plus, your Edge Boost debit card starts with a $250,000 daily limit, and it'll never be declined for gambling activity. They've got built-in tools to help you stay responsible, and there's absolutely no hidden fees or minimum required balances. So stop leaving money on the table. Visit edgeboost.bet right now to learn more and and sign up today. edgeboost.bet. Even better, just scan the QR code right there below me, and you're going to get a free upgrade to your account. Use promo code WRAP, W-R-A-P, right now. Promo code WRAP, W-R-A-P, right now, and get yourself a fantastic upgrade to your new account. It only takes a couple of minutes to sign up with Edge Boost. All right, Sam. They squared off last night in the Thunderdome, in the SoFi Arena or Stadium or whatever the hell they call it there in Florida. Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy meeting up. Juniper Golf Links, which is the dumbest name for any team in the history of teams, going up against Rory's Boston Golf Club or whatever it's called. And Tiger's team gets a win, Sam Yarnell. They beat Rory McIlroy in overtime. We actually had like competitive matches in back-to-back weeks, and I didn't see either of them because the first 2 weeks sucked so bad, I didn't come back for week 3. You lost me already, TGL. And that's a shame because I am golf guy.
Yeah, I also didn't watch it either, but I caught up on the internet after it finished. It looked like this was actually the first one that they finally got right. So maybe next week the ratings will go back up. But, you know, Jason, like you said, right? It really sucks that it took them this long to finally have a single competitive match. Yeah. Listen, other than that, am I going to watch next week? I don't think so. But if they have another good match, then I'll consider it.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's the time of the year where they should be able to gain traction now on Monday nights, given what's out there and what's on television, with football season, you know, winding down and not having any games on Monday night. So we'll see how they wind up doing. Interesting stuff coming out of the John Gruden situation. Raiders owner Mark Davis going on the record a bit, talking about how Tom Brady sort of filled the void left when John Gruden resigned from the organization following everything that happened with him. And if you don't know about what John Gruden said and did, it's really this simple. He resigned as head coach of the Raiders in 2021 after reports surfaced about emails he had written over a 10-year period, racism, misogyny, anti-gay language, you name it. John Gruden had it all out there. And what is he doing now? He works for Barstool Sports. Need I say any more? So, Sam, John Gruden still looking for a shot, obviously, in the NFL. There was reportedly a time where teams, it seemed like in this offseason early on, were kind of interested in him. But it looks like he's going to be spending another year on the sidelines, not coaching.
I do think that we should clarify that there was a large development recently in the entire John Gruden scandal, and that is that Dan Snyder indeed may have fabricated a large portion of those documents provided to the league, which we've since found out that Dan Snyder, again, was providing to the league. So again, like, everything bad in the NFL somehow draws its way back to this guy, Dan Snyder. Why it took them so long to kick that guy out of the league, I still don't understand. I guess you could
It's hard to get rid of an owner. Once you're in that club, it's hard to get out of it.
There's also a level of complacency among all the NFL owners as long as the check clears, right? And look at what happened. The second they realized the check they may have been getting was the wrong one, all of a sudden Dan Snyder was gone in about 5 seconds. The John Gruden thing is interesting. The guy's not going to get another head coaching job in the NFL. It's as simple as that. He's 62 years old. I know Pete Carroll's getting a head coaching job, but think about Pete Carroll's resume as compared to John Gruden. All that said, John Gruden's not like a bad head coach or anything. No. In terms of being a head football coach, he coached in the league for 15 years. How many times do you think his team went under 500? I'll answer it for you. 4. That's not bad. He won a Super Bowl, but he's not getting another job.
I'll never say never. There's just too many examples throughout life that tell me to never say never. It's going to certainly take an owner that really doesn't care what people think. We could start racking our brains as to who that is. Jason Cole, thanks for coming on. We'll see you tomorrow.